I've been running round in circles, screaming out your name. Let me feel your love again. 'Cause I've been running round in circles, screaming out your name.
Let me feel your love again. 'Cause I've been running round in circles, screaming out your name. Take me to a different place. Just the two of us and we can stay up all night. Kissing under streetlights, doing what we want to, doing what we need to do. Staying up all night, everything is alright. Oh, I wanna be with you. Oh, I wanna be with you.
I mean, in my view, the two independent figures who did most to develop Jung's work in different ways were James Hillman and Michael Fordham. And I consider it still a great fortune that early in my work, before I'd even written anything, they were the first supporters of my researches and encouraged my historical work. And that was an essential support at that time. And it continued to be a support, particularly when many figures in the Jungian world tried to stop my work or attacked it, and still do so. It's not very popular to the upholders of the legend. But at that stage, the figures of that stature, was like saying, and who had faced battles themselves over their own legacy, supported what I was doing, just gave me, in a way, the confidence to continue. I must be doing something right. In that sense, I don't really see that other figures have come along and elaborated something of the same level. That's not to say that there aren't very interesting people at work or people doing interesting stuff, but so I don't think at a historical level you can look back and point to other figures that elaborated a work starting from Jung, but in an original way, in quite the same way.
I didn't think I'd make it without you by my side. Let me feel your love again. Just the two of us and we could stay up all night. Kissing under streetlights, doing what we want to, doing what we need to do. Staying up all night, everything is alright. Oh, I wanna be with you.
In his student days was interested in spiritualism and studying mediums, and in a way it was an interest that he never lost. So even in his late days, he was always interested if there was a good medium in town to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
What needs to differentiate is spiritualism and psychical research. And what figures such as Frederick Myers and Theodore Fournoy were developing in their work was to say, regardless of whether this is true or not, regardless of whether the phenomena are authentic, studying them teaches one a lot about human psychology, what Fournoy called subliminal psychology. So the mediums were the main subject of psychology. And in this sense, Jung continued in that tradition, in that it led to an expanded understanding of what Frederick Myers called subliminal consciousness, or the subconscious creative imagination. Jung, in his tribute to Fournoy in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, said quite often, he took over Fournoy's concept of the subconscious creative imagination. And vis-a-vis automatic writing, one can basically see, and automatic writing formed one of the series of techniques that they used at this time. Again, starting from studying the spirit writing of the mediums and the Swedenborgians, and they then used it in psychology to explore the subliminal. Automatic writing, automatic drawing, crystal gazing induced hallucinations. And so it's you could say a network of techniques out of which developed Jung's concept of active imagination. So at a practical level, this is part of the background. I mean, Jung had been using these techniques in his exploration of mediums, and it just continued in terms of his own self-explorations. Started with researches on the case of Frank Miller. That led me into you could say, the underworld of the archives. And in that context, I was then finding a lot of interesting stuff. Also, through Michael Fordham, I realized that Jung's collected works were not complete, and that there were quite a number of unpublished manuscripts which only came to light after Jung's death. So I was doing a whole series of researches in the sense of just like first seeing what's there, in a way putting an open fishing net to see what I could find, and also then beginning to follow certain threads. The first thread that I then started to follow was the composition of memory streams, reflections. Again, from Michael Fordham, I first learned that the early manuscript that he'd read was really significantly different than the published texts. It was far madder, as he put it. And then I endeavored to try to find the manuscripts, which I managed to do. And so that was, I published that in an article in the mid-90s called Memory Streams and Missions. It's taken a number of decades to actually sort out the rights issue, and so I'm currently editing that for publication, where it takes my work around a full circle to its beginning. It was in the context of that I then, again, just following the trail, saw that Jung had that led me to the Red Book and the fact that Jung had it transcribed, and I then started searching for that. And I then found copies of transcriptions, and at that stage I was in contact with the Jung estate. I had been appointed as editor of Jung's 1932 seminars on Kundalini Yoga. Mm-hmm. And in that context, I started beginning my research in Zurich. And again, just seeing there that fortunately the Jung papers had just been catalogued. And again, you think how strange this is. They'd finished the collected works officially around 1976. But the catalogue of Jung's papers was only complete, the first catalogue in 1993. Mm-hmm. You would have thought they should have started with a proper catalogue to begin with. And there were well over 100 manuscripts or items that simply had not been looked at. And I began working through those materials. And that also was a fortuitous moment, because in a way the Jung estate was also suddenly realizing they had, and it's not known sufficiently, that they had invested in bringing out the collected works of Jung in German, whereas the Bollingen Foundation had supported the publication in English. The Jung estate had supported the work in German. And they were then suddenly confronted with this material, wondering what to do with it. And in a way, it just happened that I was doing my research at that time, and they were asking my advice as to what to do with these materials. And that began, you could say, a little project of of discussions and recommendations that in my view all of this stuff should be published.